to the political news, which we're going to focus on this morning. In the studio this morning, Vermont's independent Senator Bernard Sanders; in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Governor Bill Richardson; in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Governor Ed Rendell. Gentlemen, the president found himself last week trying to rally the people who were the core of his support in 2008, his liberal base. Yesterday, there was a good turnout of Democrats on the Mall in Washington. We have to say, not as big as that rally that Glenn Beck held, but a sizable turnout nonetheless. Senator Sanders, I want to start with you first. You are proudly one of the most liberal members of the Senate. You're an independent and a democratic socialist, actually, is what you call yourself. So I want to just start by asking you, why do people at your end of the political spectrum seem so, if not disenchanted, but rather unenthusiastic about the president that they supported so strongly in 2008? What's happened here?
Well, what's happened is I think that people understand the president and the Democratic Congress have made very significant accomplishments, which can't be dismissed. Health care reform, 30 million more people getting health insurance. The stimulus package, which has changed national priorities, created and saved 2.5 to 3 million jobs. Financial reform, that's nothing to sneeze at. But I think the concern is that despite all of that, the middle class in America continues to collapse. Poverty is increasing, and the gap between the very, very rich and everybody else is growing wider. And you can do all kinds of good things, but if you have 16% of our population unemployed, underemployed, or have given up looking for work, you know what? We have a very serious situation. And I think there's a concern that the president hasn't seen that urgency, stood up for working families in the way we would like him to do, and taken on the big money interests and said to the American people exactly what FDR said in the 1930s. Listen, I am on your side. Their greed, their recklessness on Wall Street has caused these problems. I'm going to take them on. I'm coming to you. We're going to work together on a progressive agenda to expand the middle class.
Is part of that, I mean, some on the left and some very strident voices on the left are saying the president was just looking for compromise too much with moderate Republicans rather than taking a stand and pushing through some of this stuff.
I think in his heart, the president is a very, very decent guy, and he wants to do what most Americans want him to do, to reach out, bring people together. But what has happened is the Republicans have said no, no, no. They have waged more filibusters than any time in the history of this country. They have been the party of no and obstructionism. And at some point, what the president has got to understand, they do not want America to succeed. They're into politics. His job is to rally the American people, as he did in Wisconsin, and say, we are going to create the jobs that we desperately need in this country. We are going to take on Wall Street. We are going to save Social Security. We are going to do something about the gap between the very rich and everybody else.
Now, I must interrupt you and say that's a strong statement to say. I mean, yes, the Republicans are against the president's policies, but is it really fair to say they don't want America to succeed?
Yeah. I would say that given the choice between regaining power or obstructing the initiatives that create jobs that protect the American people, yes, I think gaining power is their major initiative. I'm on the floor of the Senate, Bob, and I got to tell you, every single day it's 60 votes to pass legislation. That is unprecedented in American history.
All right, let me go to Governor Richardson. Governor, you're watching all this from out there in New Mexico. You heard the vice president last week tell the left it's time to stop whining and to kind of get on the team and get on board here. How serious is this disaffection? Are liberals going to stay home?
Well, it's important that liberals, conservatives, moderates in the Democratic Party basically stop complaining and realize that we have a month to go. We've had some gains in the last month since Labor Day, but this is when voters are paying attention. And the first step we need to take is energize the Democratic base. And there's nobody better than the president and the vice president to go after that base of young people, of minorities, of independents that got the president elected. He's the best person to do that. But all Democrats, if there's one message that I want to send, is that we should stop firing at each other. We've got enough people, the Republicans, firing at us already. So we don't need these divisions in the party. But what I would do, Bob, is stop talking about bills in Congress, financial overhaul, health care reform, bailouts. Start talking about creating jobs and housing and making the American people recognize that we need to make investments in sagging industries and renewable energy and manufacturing, jobs, workforce development. Connect with voters emotionally.
Well,
but more than anything, Bob, we have got to come together and realize that we can't go back to those Republican policies of a horrendous economy and huge deficits.
Well, let me just ask you this. What is it, do you think, that the president did wrong here?
Well, I believe that he has tackled the major issues. He has tackled the fact that we were heading into a depression, and he avoided. He's restored our standing internationally. I know that's not a big campaign theme, but he's done that. Wall Street, the stock market is coming back. There's still 20 million unemployed and underemployed. There's still foreclosures. There's no question that we've got problems. But I saw the president in Albuquerque. He was here in some of these backyard chats, and the vice president. They're doing everything they can to energize the base. But I think we've got to stop talking about the Beltway and all the races in Washington. Yes, it's important, the Senate and the House, but you know, they should listen more to governors, the Democratic Party. We're the ones creating jobs, renewable energy, movies in my state. Ed Rendell in Pennsylvania has created a lot of jobs. Look at success stories in the states, in the grassroots, with mayors, with county commissioners. Okay. It's not just the Washington, D.C. party.
All right. Well, Governor Rendell, you're up there in what is always a key state, Pennsylvania. A lot of those suburbs around Philadelphia that the president carried last time out. Looks like he's going to have, the candidates, Democrats are going to have some real troubles there. What is it that has caused this drift away from the president, in your view, that we saw so many independents were for the president in 2008, and also so many young people who so far, despite that big rally that we saw out there in Wisconsin, haven't shown much interest in this election? And it's going to be hard for all Democrats if those groups don't turn out this time around.
Well, there's no question, Bob. And I think part of it's perception. I think the president's done a much better job than people perceive, and including the base. I mean, Time magazine had a wonderful piece 2 weeks ago about how far-reaching and changing our economy the stimulus was. I know you read it, and it's incredible what they're doing in renewable energy and all sorts of things that are important to us in the future that are in that bill, but nobody knows it.
Well, why not? I guess the question I'm asking is, why have they been unable to get that message out, and why have, you know, folks like the Tea Party on the other side of the spectrum, where there's also great frustration, they have seemed to get the message out, at least the other side of it. So why have Democrats been unable to do that?
Well, two reasons, Bob. Number one, ours is a complex message. The Tea Party message is pretty easy and simple and direct. Secondly, we just don't have it in our makeup or in our DNA to mislead the public. We don't go out there and talk about death panels. You know, the question you asked to Bernie about, is the Republican Party the party of no? You thought that was a little extreme. Well, look at the small business bill. Republicans have talked all summer about helping small business, and yet there was a bill with $30 billion of lending authority, with elimination of capital gains on small businesses, and they held it up until Senator Voinovich cast the deciding vote. They held it up all summer long. It could have been helping small businesses 3-4 months earlier had they acted responsibly.
President Clinton, on this broadcast several weeks ago, said, look, we wouldn't even be holding this conversation if unemployment was 5%. Is this basically just the economy is really bad and the president happens to be the guy in office right now, and when you're in office and the economy is bad, you're going to pay at the polls? Is that what basically is going on here?
Well, Bob, there's some of that. I have no doubt about it. There's some of that, and every governor, every senator who's an incumbent is feeling that. But our job in the next 4 weeks is to tell our base, our liberal friends, this is a choice, and the other choice is starkly bad for America and for the things you believe in. And remember, there's an old political adage. All we've got to do is get into the polls, because a tepid vote counts the same as a wildly enthusiastic vote.
Governor, let me just ask Senator Sanders here. Are are liberals going to turn out? Because I hear a lot of people say, well, I just may not get around to voting this time
I
around.
think you're going to see more progressives coming out than you otherwise would have. But I think in the next month, what we have got to do is not only make it clear that the Bush agenda and the policies the Republican want will be a disaster for America, we have got to bring forth a positive agenda. For example, we brought forth a bill on outsourcing. Under the Bush administration, we lost 5 million good-paying manufacturing jobs. Companies are throwing American workers out on the street to move into China. People are going nuts about this. We have got to stand up bold and say, corporate America has got to reinvest in America. In terms of tax breaks for billionaires, when the top 1% earns 23% of all income in America, they don't need tax breaks. As Ed Rendell said, we have to invest in infrastructure, transforming our energy system, Social Security. We have got to stand up and say, no privatization, no cuts in Social Security, differentiate ourselves from the Republicans.
Bill Richardson, you were trying to get into the conversation there.
Well, I also think we should take on the Tea Party. For some reason, everyone is scared of them. What they really want to do to this country is when they talk about reducing deficits is they're cutting into Medicare, Medicaid, firefighters, teachers, nurses, people's benefits, Social Security. I think it's important that we not be defensive, that we be strong, but we have to unify and stop the internal carping. It's important that we recognize that we not only have to attract our liberal, progressive base, but also the Democratic Party is moderates, it's conservatives, it's Western Democrats, it's Southern Democrats. It's important that we not be so concentric, so Washington-based. And here I do think the president's efforts at going into backyards, at rallying the base, and the vice president very strongly, are being very effective, but the rest of the party seems to be doing their own thing. I think it's important that we talk and make those populist themes about creating jobs, about foreclosures, not talk about all these Washington bills and initiatives that are happening. The people want to be connected emotionally.
Would Democrats have been better off had the vice president not told the left to stop whining? It seems to have it hadn't seemed to go down very well on the left.
Well, no, I think that's exactly what needed to happen. Sure, maybe it wasn't popular within the left, but it's important that we come together, that we not stay home, that we talk about the importance of not going back to the years of Republicans that brought us this recession, that brought us this unemployment. But it's not enough to say, okay, American people, give us credit because we Democrats prevented it from getting any worse. You got to be positive. You got to talk about jobs, and you got to talk about the economy, and you got to connect with people emotionally.
All right, Governor Rendell, do you think that as it stands now, Republicans are probably going to take the House?
I'm not sure. I think we're definitely going to keep the Senate, and I think we have a chance to win the House because I believe the Democrats, including the base, starting to come back. They're starting to realize that this is an alternative. It's not a referendum on how the president's done or how the Congress is done. It's an alternative. And Republican leaders have said if they control the House, the first thing they're going to do is issue subpoenas and have one investigation after another. If you're listening out there, Democrat, Republican, or Independent, that's the worst thing this country could undertake right now, given all of the challenges we face. That's destructive.
All right. Well, for the last couple of weeks, we've been focusing on the Tea Party and some of the Republicans on this broadcast. Today, we let the Democrats have their side.